Today, we are joined with Hein once again, and a special guest, like I mentioned, last minute guest, Xavier is here with us as well. He's part
Hello.
of the Dusk team. Hey guys, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. How are you?
Very good also. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm looking forward to this one because I've heard we're going to get spoiled today and you guys have something quite special to show us. So I'm looking forward to this.
Spoiled, it depends on what you want, but yeah, for some people this will be very interesting. But I'll leave it up to you to say what it is because you have to handle the brunt of it, right? So honestly, honor is yours.
So today we're getting a demo on DuskEVM testnet. Now I wanted to let Hein to kind of explain a little bit more about what that will entail and what that would be about. And then he's going to get into it. And Xavier is also going to have a nice little demo for us as well on a different aspect. But we'll get into that after Hein's presentation and demo. So Hein, can you just take the stage a little bit, and then I'll try to get Xavier in the meanwhile his permissions on.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so there are a couple of things that we can walk through, right? Beginning with maybe it's interesting to mention what we've been doing with DuskDS, right? So we had a new DevNet deploy. I'll share my screen and then I'll show you what's going on there. Okay, everyone should be able to see that, right? So yeah, so what we've done is we've reset the network. There are a couple of changes that we put in DuskDS, including the pricing of blobs. As you can see, these are priced now at a minimum value of 1 million lux per blob. So for stakers, this is going to be interesting because it means that the fees on the network will be a little bit higher and the block space will more easily be filled. We have these blob transactions here going on. These are coming from our DuskEVM testnet. So these are being posted on DuskDS at the moment. We've made a lot of changes with regard to the blobs themselves, right? So I'm not sure if there were any questions that came in around that, but you can handle that afterwards. So here there's not much change, right? You can see that there's not a lot of activity. We post a blob every 3 blocks, give or take. So it's a 40-second, 30-second time frame in which the commits are done. These are mostly empty at the moment because the network, the EVM network doesn't have that much traffic going on. Then we have the Blockscout. This is the particular explorer for DuskEVM. And as you can see here, every block that is committed to the L1 has an equivalent block on the L2. There's not much to see here beyond if you're familiar with EVM systems, then this looks familiar to you. This block explorer is a bit different from what most people will probably be used to, but it's very rich. So it has all the features there. You can do all the tracking and tracing you have in a normal block explorer. You can also see the top accounts and that sort of stuff. And a couple will have already some transactions going because I know that Xavi has already been playing around a nice amount. Let's see. So what I can do is I can show some simple transfers and then the equivalent actions happening on DuskEVM. You should see, right? Yeah. Let me grab MetaMask. So as you can see here, I have quite some funds because we have these accounts pre-funded with the 1 million Dusk, testnet Dusk. I have two
AKA
accounts,
whale.
let me grab one of them. Well, no. So let me send some funds over. This will behave exactly the same as any other network you're used to, right? Like EVM. So I'll just send funds. It's only 10 because I'm greedy like that. And the block times at the moment are set at 12 seconds. Whether we will go into production with that, I don't think so. I think we'll probably make it quicker for the reactivity, right? But at the moment we set it to 12 for testing purposes. So every DuskEVM block has an equivalent DuskDS block taking place. So this transaction's pushed through, and oh, I didn't have the block explorer here, but the transaction here took place. So you can see here that I sent the funds around to this wallet. I can also show how we do a deployment, right? So I have this online browser editor where you can do code. And I have a very simple token here called simple token. Beautiful name. And this one is based on the default OpenZeppelin one. Yeah, it's I'm creative like that. Let me connect MetaMask. It's connected to Ethereum. We do not want that. We want to be connected to DuskEVM. All right. So we have for this testnet we have 310 as network ID, but we want to change that to 745. So token, simple token, and then I can give it a supply. Lot of numbers, and I will deploy it. Then you can, in a second, see that pop up as a contract deployment on the testnet. I'm impatient, so like the 12-second window is quite big. No, but I mean it's always a bit faster. And I always got the MetaMask notification, so it should be there. There it is. And then you can see it already. Notice it is the simple token, right? And then you can see all the informations like, oh, I did one transaction. I can go to the token itself, and then I should have the balance information, user balance information as well. So you see, I have one holder, and that's myself. So this is nothing too special, right? Like this is if you're familiar with EVM systems, then it behaves exactly the same. I can also show how these transactions look like, but it will be quite meaningless for people. But I'll do it anyway, just so that it's shown. Let me switch around. So we have some settings in Postman, and this is a tool to make calls to the blockchain. And we're making calls here to DuskDS, to the DevNet. So I have a transaction hash that I took from the Explorer. I throw that in there, I make the request, and I get the blob hashes from it. And these blob hashes are, let's say, a check to see that the data from a blob that you get is actually contained within a transaction. So this is a very important mechanism to check the state of the L2 or the DuskEVM and then reconstruct it later on. So if I take this blob hash, for example, we have another endpoint called onBlobs, and this onBlobs endpoint allows you to retrieve the underlying blob. And these blobs, these data loads, are used by the L2 to reconstruct the state. Now, as you can see here, this is a lot of data. A lot of it is empty because as part of the specification, it is required that you fill up the blob, regardless of whether it's filled or not. So there are some strategies to when you commit the blob until it's like full, but enough that you have a certain security threshold. But this blob I took is quite empty. And keep in mind, this also contains a lot of compressed data. So some of the transactions I just did, you see in compressed form in here. Now, turning this back into actual readable human data is quite difficult, right? So what you have there is they call it derivation in Optimism, which we built DuskEVM from. It has a derivation specification, and one of the ways that we can reconstruct the state is by running a DuskEVM validator. So in DuskEVM, you have two roles. You have the DuskEVM sequencer, which is the one that makes the blocks and processes the transactions. And you have the DuskEVM validator, and the validator can read the state. It can communicate directly with the sequencer to get up-to-date information. This is considered unsafe because it's not finalized yet by DuskDS. Or you can run it in safe mode, and then the Dusk validator will only get the data from DuskDS itself, process it, and then rebuild the chain from there. And then you can guarantee that the information is at least processed by DuskDS and let's say finalized. It doesn't necessarily guarantee correctness because that's something that we're working on, and that's something we'll do post DuskEVM launch, which would make it that you can basically always assume that after a certain number of blocks, maybe even 6 or maybe even same block, you can guarantee that it's safe and finalized, and that the sequencer cannot misuse these blocks. So yeah, beyond that, I don't have much to show from my side. I mean, if there are any questions around this, please drop them in the chat, and I'll gladly answer them. Else, I'll hand it over to Xavi, and he can show an actual application running on DuskEVM.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's still awesome to see how this all connects, right? Especially we've had quite a lot of people asking to see something like this. So if there's no questions
I mean, I can go
live
even
now,
deeper, but I mean, I can go even deeper, but if we go deeper, then I have to show, for example, the logs of the actual sequencer going on, and that is quite boring, I would say. I'm not sure if people would be interested in that, but yeah,
that's even more technical. Well, it's an option. We could, I can break that up to the community, see what they say, and if there is interest around that, then we can always have another session to look, deeper into it. But I think this already gives a good idea, and if there are any questions afterwards, then we can get into it in the next Team Hangouts. But Xavier, it's great to see that the screen recording is the screen sharing is working for you now, so that's good. But before we get into everything you have prepared for us, I know that not a lot of the community actually got the chance and the opportunity to have a chat with you yet, and to kind of like get to know you. So if you can, just do a little, very short introduction of like who you are, how long you've been at Dusk, and what you mainly work on, that'll be awesome.
Yes, I'm Xavi. I'm a cryptography researcher here at Dusk. I've been here for like 4 years, more or less now. And basically my job here is to research on cryptography, and now since a couple of months ago, I'm working on Hedger, a real-world asset tokenization tool with privacy features on it. And well, that's more or less what I'm working on now. Who am I?
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. I mean, Hedger has been a topic that came up quite a lot, and a lot of people are interested into it. So here you go, guys. Xavier, along with Marta, have been one of the two main people working on Hedger, from what I know, right? So it's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. First of all, to the broader community, to introduce you, and actually, I'm just gonna let you take the stage and explain to us a little bit of what you're gonna share with us, and walk us through it.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you an application, a CLI application that I've been working on these last weeks. As you can see, I'm gonna connect to the DuskEVM, and I'm gonna connect specifically to this contract that we have already deployed there in the DuskEVM. And as you can see, it's about Hedger. We have a wallet CLI to interact with all the possibilities and features that Hedger has. So I'm gonna load an existing wallet that I already have created. And here you have all the options that we can execute and to perform to interact with Hedger. Basically, well, a little review of everything we have here. We have our node. We are connected to this node, to this contract. Then there is an issuer of the contract, which is the person who rules and owns the contract and is able to issue new tokens, new real-world assets, and so on. I'm the same person. I'm the issuer of the contract. I have some native tokens, let's say Ether, Ethereum, Dusk in the DuskEVM in this case. I am allowed to trade because here in the Hedger contracts we have an allowed list which allows people who has gone through a KYC to have the permissions to trade anonymously in the network or not. And then I have a specific address, which is the Hedger address, which is used basically by the internals of the program and the contract in order to create the zero knowledge proofs to transfer money from one party to another. But in the end, this is only used by the user when they have to be added into the allowed list. They have to go to the issuer or the auditor of the contract and hand them the EVM address and also a Hedger address. And from that moment on, a map gets created into the contract and you don't need this address anymore. You simply need to have your EVM address, and using this address, the contract handles all the rest. And you can create the zero knowledge proof to prove to everyone that you have enough money, enough funds to send transfers from one party to another. So basically, that's more or less what the basic structure of the contract is. So here, I can go through all the options. I can first of all check the portfolio. As you can see, I have here already created some rapid Dusk, for instance, with a given balance, a total contract supply, and the origin of this token is a native Hedger tokens. Here in this in Hedger we have support for 3 different tokens. One of them are native Hedger tokens, which are tokens that we create directly into the contract, and they live there forever. I, for instance, can have my Hedger contract and say, okay, I'm going to create my real-world asset about any company, so some stocks for some company. And these stocks will live in this contract forever. But I can also import or deposit into the contract ERC20 tokens, or even also native EVM tokens, Ether in Ethereum or Dusk in the DuskEVM. So we have support for different kind of tokens in Hedger. For instance, what I can do now is to mint some new tokens. I can create a new token, call it, I don't know, whatever, my real world asset. And I'm going to put that I want this amount of tokens to be minted. It computes the zero knowledge proof in under 2 seconds, more or less. And the transaction got through the network. Now I have to check out for a while. It already got accepted in the network. And as you can see, I already have my real world asset here minted. As you can see here, there is another column, which is the nodes. It works in a kind of hybrid way like it was done in Phoenix. Basically, we have a node that is created every time we are sending money to someone, but then every time that you are using again your account, in this case, if I was going to send native EVM tokens, instead of having 2 nodes, I would reduce it to simply 1. Every time that I'm transferring money, I'm aggregating all the nodes for efficiency of the network. So it's also a cool thing here to be able to aggregate all the nodes. So now what I can do is to transfer some tokens to Hein. I'm going to copy his address, which was that one. Okay. Here. And I can select what I want to send him. For instance, I'm going to send him some rapid Dusk. I'm going to send 200. It computes the zero knowledge proof again in under 2 seconds. And it gets completed. I can check again the portfolio. And it got reduced here. And I only have 1 node. And now Hein, if he checks his portfolio, he will see that he received some rapid Dusk in his account. Then I can also, as I said, I can deposit native EVM tokens. As you can see here, I have my EVM native balance, which is 99 at the moment. If I go here and deposit EVM tokens to myself, I can put, for instance, 10. It computes the zero-knowledge proof, and it's deposited into my account. I check the portfolio. It takes a few seconds. Now, 89, and this one, if I'm not wrong, got increased by 10. Then I can also check if a holder is allowed to trade. I, for instance, had the Hein's address here. I can check if he's allowed to trade. And it's true, I'm querying the contract to check who's in the allowed list and who's not. I'm the issuer now, so I could add someone, another holder, to the allowed list by having his EVM address and also his Hedger address. Or I could also remove someone from the allowed list if by regulations or whatever, someone has no permissions to trade again. And this is more or less what's about. I think I didn't mention, when I'm doing a transfer here, this transfer is hiding the amounts that is transferring. That's why we need the zero-knowledge proofs. When we are minting, we are depositing some money, we compute the zero-knowledge proof. But as we are sending this amount of money from the outside, it's obvious how much we are sending to the contract. But once it's into the contract and we perform the transfer, this amount that got reduced from your account, nobody knows how much you got deduced from your account. Your balance is always hidden, and you are always sending money to another Hedger accounts in an anonymous manner. Nobody knows how much you are transferring. And I think that more or less that's everything. I think I'm not missing anything. Hein?
No, I think there's a couple of things to mention. This of course is quite difficult when the set of people involved is quite low, right? It is now, right? Like if I would share my screen, it's really easy to deduce how much I have and how much you have. If you're an issuer, it's of course different because let's say you do an off-chain issuance. You as the issuer get the full balance and then you distribute it. So to everyone in the network, it's not clear who has what balances except for the issuer, which is like the ideal situation. Another thing to mention is we have a CLI now, but the only reason we have a CLI is because it's easy prototyping for Xavi when he's working on this, right? So the UI implementation of this will be combined with the tokenization application we're building. And
Plus,
I think also.
Yeah, plus I didn't mention, but it's a work in progress. Now you only see the deposit of native EVM tokens, but basically because I didn't have time to implement the deposit of ERC20. But in the contract, it's working. I mean, we have already the function to deposit and to withdraw the tokens from there. So it's just that the CLI is still a work in progress.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to emphasize that this is not like Hedger in a way was like this token of its own, right? But this is something that's compatible with ERC20, something that a lot of external parties have requested, and this is something that we can form into a standard of our own to enrich the ecosystem around this as well.
No, this is awesome. This is really, really cool to see. And I already see a couple of
it's all running
questions.
On DuskEVM, by the way, but
and it's all running on DuskEVM. Amazing. Really awesome. I'm gonna echo what this slide said. This is awesome. Seeing this for especially for the community for the first time. So thank you, Xavier. This was really cool. And we actually have a couple of questions as well from the community. They are so the first one is around the total supply of a token, the Hedger token. So is it max 6 digits for the Hedger token, or is that just for this?
Yes, At the moment, yeah. I mean, it's not the max. The max is a U256. But the problem with Hedger is that in order to have the zero knowledge and so on, the maximum value that you can transfer is U69. So 64. U64. So only 64 bits of information. That's why, more or less, we discussed with Hein, based on other tokens and so on. In Ether, for instance, it will be billions, and also the amount of the minimum is also much lower than 1 cent of euro. So at the moment, we are working in this line, having 6 decimals, and up, I think it was like 9, 10. I don't know how many numbers in front of it. In total, 64 bits.
Got it.
Yeah, I think also keep in mind it's not 6-digit as in, after in front of the comma, it's behind. It's the decimals, right? Because it's a bit of a trade-off. If you have this limited space, 64 bits, where do you place it? If you increase the decimals, then each unit would then need to have a higher price. While if you do the other way around, the unit price can be a bit lower, which is usually what you see happen. So on the edge, it would only be a problem if the asset would have an extremely high value, like I think above 100k per unit, and then you have also a very large unit count. So you would be talking about Berkshire Hathaway with the stocks outstanding compared to Amazon or Nvidia, right? Which would be an absurd high valuation. While on the other side, you would be talking about penny stocks. And then I mean like seriously low value penny stocks. So I think that this 6 decimals is like the perfect compromise between valuation of an asset and the average pricing of an asset. So there has been some thought put into that.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Someone mentions that this is really quick. That it's quicker than Hedger, and I think Xavi, you're probably the better one to say this, but these circuits are a lot simpler than the one we have on Hedger, right?
Well, the amount of constraints, it's more or less similar, but in this case, we used Growth 16 because it was much faster. And as we also wanted to have something that fast and without having to rely on nodes, provers to complete the proof for you, we said, okay, let's try to use Circom also, Snap.js, which already have support for browsers. And we also tried it on a browser, and it was more or less the same speed in the same computer, under 2 seconds. It was really fast. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, zero knowledge proof are usually very, well, not usually, most of the time are very heavy in terms of computation. But it's also true that when this happens and when it becomes a very big problem, is also because they use it for millions of constraints. Not in this case that we are using only, I think it was around 100k constraints, more or less something like that. It's not that big.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense on why it's quicker. Really cool. Well, I'm gonna allow the community to ask a couple of more questions if they do have on Hedger. If not, then I want to thank you, Xavier, for taking the time to show us Hedger. This has been really cool. And of course, we are recording this for anyone that's not able to make it live. And we'll probably get into the questions that the community has for Hein next. Xavier, if you want to stick around, that's also fine. If you want to drop off, you don't have to feel stuck here.
Let's keep him around. He can answer some of them as well. So
yeah,
cool. There you go. Maybe you can have your own opinion about some of these questions as well. Why not? That would be fun. Cool.
Exactly,
well, if
especially
there's
when they're clashing. So,
yes. Well, I don't see any more questions about Hedger. So let's just get into the questions. We actually have quite a lot of questions today for you, Hein and Xavier. So the first one. The first one was, so someone mentions that I don't know if Hein actually still writes code or not, but is this credible? And they shared the link with Paul Graham's tweet where he mentions that he met a founder that is able to write 10,000 lines of code a day using AI. And someone is asking, first of all, is this credible? And well, I guess second of all, the first question is more so, Hein, do you still write code?
Yeah, well, okay, about that one, not that much. My role is, just doesn't allow for that. Like with the team we have to do a lot of coding. It's a lot of high-level architecting and coordination. So active involvement has quite has dropped down. I think people who follow me on GitHub can also see that the amount of commits has decreased. But that's fine. But when it comes to this question, first of all, lines of code is not really it's a bit of a dangerous metric, but let's assume that these are high quality lines of code. I do think it's a really interesting discussion around AI, and maybe it's good also to drop this tweet for people as a source to check out. I'll drop it in here because
Perfect.
what we have is I think it's very fair to say we have a really good team, right? Our developers are really good, so very smart people, very capable. But in this age where you have people that are maybe mediocre developers, and maybe I would put myself in that category, but that are, let's say, less technically proficient, but are really good at utilizing these new up and coming tools. For example, these multi-agent models that do coding for them, and they actually know what's going on with this coding. Those will start to outcompete a good developer who does not use enhancements like AI, right? And for us, this is quite something we have to be cognizant of, that we follow these developments and start playing into them as well, because else we will start lagging behind. So I have some work to do in this regard to make sure that our team also is capable of playing into these trends, because if at some point you even imagine a good team, right? Like a good team that has access to these tools, or a great team, they will start outperforming everyone around them, and we do not want to lag behind in that regard.
Right.
I already, to be honest, use the technology a lot, but the thing with this technology is also that you need to be aware of what it's doing, because if you're just blindly following what it gives you, it will gaslight you into believing that what it's doing is correct, or just reinforcing some thoughts you put into it, right? It doesn't have the same level of critical thinking capacity that most humans have. So as long as you're able to use it to speed up work and then verify that it's correct, then it's okay. Well, 100% it's. I'm not going to debate that too much. I would tend to err on the side of yes, I agree. But I do think that these tools can help. We cannot ignore them. If we ignore them, but definitely we'll be on the losing end of it.
Yeah. I mean, I have my own opinion on that as well, and I would agree. But before I say something, I'm curious, Xavier, do you have an opinion on this? Do you have experience with working with AI in your, or maybe day to day, or just any experience in working with AI? And what has your experience been with it? And what do you think about this AI trend in coding?
Very little. I mean, sometimes if I have to code something very easy, like convert this to 3 decimals or something like this, of course I use it because it's much faster than doing it myself. But no, if you are talking about the in-depth what's AI about, I mean, maybe I did it like 10 years ago at the university, but I haven't touched machine learning and so on since then. It's more at the user level now at the moment.
Yeah.
So you're a PyTorch enjoyer. Okay. I used to have this also in machine learning in university. first. It was quite interesting. But yeah, I think also in the work that Xavi does, it's a bit more difficult because it's really on the cutting edge. So the training data is quite limited there. But yeah, the inference of for example, providing it new data with the correct context already helps it to understand the code base. And if you look at some of these tools like Cloud Code or whatever, they are quite capable. So, for example, for documentation writing or whatever, it can be quite useful. I was writing one application, a prototype that we did for something for which I needed like API docs. Forgot the name, Swagger. And one of the things it had to do was I wanted the Swagger documentation to be generated in a very quick way. And I just threw it in there and it provided me a plugin. And it, based on the code that I had, it just generated the whole thing. There were mistakes there. I just fixed the mistakes. And I had the whole Swagger documentation for the API in place. So I was able to bootstrap a prototype there in like an insane time. But keep in mind, this was not a production application. So then the dynamics start to change a bit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, AI has improved tremendously over the years and just over the last couple of months, right? Especially with, like you mentioned, cloud code, which does a great job, but also it's not going to, you're not going to lose your job over AI just in this instant. Maybe in the future it could get to a point where it improves and it's actually capable of getting there, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily too soon. But when you do use it in combination with your own knowledge and expertise in a certain field, then you can really take advantage of it to optimize certain processes and make everything much more efficient, right? But without having the initial knowledge yourself on how to kind of guide it, then you're just stuck in, like you mentioned, being gaslighted that what he does is right. And I've played around with it. I have no technical or development dev experience, but I was too curious because everyone was talking about it. So I tried to vibe code something myself, and it was quite an experience. It was humbling, but it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, the key things to remember is make sure that the database is not publicly accessible and not to commit the private keys and put them into your application, right? So in your front end. So that's one of the those are three key things that already help a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I must say, what's also really nice is these tools, like for example, Grok is, for example, able to like fire off 40 searches in the same time, right? So if you just type in something, which would normal Google, but Google doesn't have the contextual awareness, even though they have added Gemini now in the search results, which does help. But being able to like have like the system firing off 40 searches at the same time and then providing you the sources as well to triple check it, yeah, that's really neat.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you. That was a good insight. Now, the next question, and actually, I'm going to choose a question that Xavier might also, or could be able to also give us some take on, because someone is asking, what's the vision and next steps for DuskEVM and Hedger?
Hein, I don't know if you are the one knowing what are the plans. I mean, Hedger is... you said Hedger or Hedger?
Hedger. So
let's take it as Hedger.
Yeah.
Hedger.
Okay. I mean, Hedger, the prototype, the proof of concept is more or less ready. I mean, it's as a proof of concept is ready. I don't know the plans from the board about this. What I know is that for Phoenix and so on, it made a lot of sense, but porting it to the DuskEVM, that's why we created Hedger, to have something that actually made sense in this scenario. I don't know if after the release of DuskEVM and so on, what are your plans, Hein, on this?
Yeah, Thomas asked to speak. He works on stocks together with me, right? So he can probably mention a thing or two about it.
Yeah, I was just setting up my microphone. I assume the question was about the next steps after DuskEVM is out?
Yeah, this was
to Hedger.
With regard to Hedger? Yeah, so we are going to obviously tokenize stocks. And the next logical step about that is also to be privacy compliant. So the next steps for a token like a Hedger token would be to enable it to be traded in some sort of private way through an order book or even a DEX where the transfer is obviously then private. And this is something that we need to adjust in Hedger then and have some compatibility, because the vast majority of DeFi products that you see on EVM chains, they are all compliant with ERC20 tokens. And when you look at Hedger from a perspective that you have nodes in there and it's not like an account-based model per se, then you would need to adjust all those products that can work with ERC20 tokens if you want to, for example, also privately lend on-chain to make it work with the Hedger standard.
Yeah. So one of the things that Xavi and I have been discussing, and he's going to look more into, is turning Hedger into an EIP, right, like an ESC standard. And this standard will then be able to be used in like trading platforms as well, right? So that we can build something around that to make it compatible with privacy preserving trading.
All right. Okay. And Hein, do you have any information on DuskVM, as in not EVM but DuskVM, and kind of what the vision is for that? I know it's not a priority at this moment, since we're working on DuskEVM and it's going to probably come later on. But if there's anything you can share about the vision.
These are quite those are quite theoretical discussions where we want to look into separating execution engines from settlement and data availability, right? But to me, with where I'm currently at with my mind, and I guess the rest of the team here can also reiterate that the focus is purely on product delivery. Getting to market as fast as possible without compromising security, but getting products out, start revenue, start growing TVL, start growing a user base. And I think that everything else that we talk about from a technical point of view is just a distraction from that.
Fair enough. I'll take that answer and agree. Well, since we are talking about that's a good segue, I guess, into the next question, which is actually, before I get to the next question, I see that there are a couple of questions in chat, so maybe we can get to those. One of them is, in the demo, the token showed as ERC20. Will that remain since it's fitting with the ERC standard? But aren't DuskEVM tokens, Dusk tokens with ERC20 compatibility?
Yes, I'm not sure if it's what you are asking, but basically the DuskEVM has the native token that's used for gas, the Dusk token. And then it has support, like Hein showed, that you can create your ERC20 token and work with it as you do in Ethereum or other blockchains. The thing with Hedger is that you have your contract and you can deposit all these tokens into the Hedger token. Into the Hedger contract, sorry. And then within the Hedger contract, what you can do is to transfer tokens from one user to another user in an anonymous manner. Then if you want to withdraw these tokens from the Hedger contract to send it to someone else using another standard method, you can do so.
All right. Hopefully that answers the question. And now for those, those that that may not be so technical, could you give us, because you showed us Hedger, and someone is asking how privacy will be handled in DuskEVM. What about general purpose token and privacy for securities, and how that will be kind of handled? Maybe Hein, would you like to take that?
No, I think Xavi can answer that one.
Okay.
Well, into Hedger, basically, what it's hidden, it gets anonymous, is the amount that it's exchanged. It's also a bit what Hein commented at the beginning, that when the set is very small, like you are the only one exchanging money, it's very easy to deduce who's exchanging what. But if we assume that the set will increase, that we have our contract with a lot of people depositing money, minting new tokens, and so on, and exchanging the tokens between them, at some point it gets impossible to trace who's sending what to whom. I mean, you know that who's the user triggering the transaction, but you cannot learn how much has been transferred from one party to another. So in that regard, Hedger will handle the privacy in that way. Beyond that, I'm not aware of other protocols that we want to deploy at the moment. Hein?
Well, I would say we are not going to deploy those type of protocols ourselves, but in theory, anyone else can do that as well, right? So I'm not gonna, let's say, tell people to do it, but they can if they want to. And the question about the tokens, I'm looking at it again now, but keep in mind that every ERC20 standard works on DuskEVM, right? There is no correlation between an ERC20 standard and the definition of Dusk. So what we have as Dusk, the token comes in various forms. On platforms like Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum, they are ERC20s. On DuskDS, they are the native currency of the network in the form of Phoenix and Moonlight. And on DuskEVM, Dusk, the token, is the same as the native currency of an EVM network, which would be, in the case of Binance Smart Chain, BNB, or in the case of Ethereum, Ether, right? So in the demo, I showed a deployment of an ERC20 compatible token. It's the same standard as it would have on any EVM compatible chain. It even has the same portable solidity code, but this token is not, let's say, a Dusk token. It's a token that runs on the Dusk EVM network, but it's not equivalent to Dusk as a token, right? So I hope that at least clarifies some confusion there. Hedger and NFTs, well, Dusk, you can work on that with us if you want. There is a question about burning Dusk. All I'm going to say is watch this space. We have some ideas, but nothing we'd like to talk about yet.
Yeah, he did mention that he saw that the fees are in Dusk and part of it is burned from what he sees. So he's asking if over time the supply might be reduced in this way.
Actually, now that you mention it, I think in the optimism setup that sort of can happen, but keep in mind that the sequencer also gets part of the fee, and part of that fee is used to pay the transactions happening on DuskDS to pay for the block transactions. So those are linked to each other.
All right.
There's another question, a long one.
Yeah, sure. Let's read that out. So we've often heard you say that modifications are done based on institutional and partner demand. Could you elaborate a bit on what kind of use cases or workflows these institutions are asking for? They're curious, where do these institutions currently stand in terms of onboarding? And if they're already testing or waiting for something?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So when it comes to workflows, for example, we've been talking to some banks and we were very interested in how they do their tokenization flows, right? Because you have some banks in Germany, for example, that are already doing bond tokenization, but these are like spreadsheets on the blockchain, right? They only do primary market, not secondary market. It's similar to what we did with the bond project last year, where you buy it, but you cannot really trade the asset, and at the end of the expiration time of the bond, you get the full payout with the coupon. Now, we were talking to these parties and we were trying to understand how their flows work and their underlying partners, what they do. But everything always came down to the same sort of formula. And it was always ERC20 at the root of it. And since we were already back in the day thinking about doing the DuskEVM, and it was still called Lightspeed for a bit of a different context, it made sense to move more towards that because we were talking about integrations as well with other parties and the duration it would take and the cost it would be to do it on DuskDS instead of DuskEVM. And we did some internal maths, and it just made complete sense to make this architectural switch. It doesn't mean anything for the mission and vision, right? But when we're talking about the architecture itself, if we now would have spent the whole time making the tooling easier around DuskDS, we would still probably be in a lot of pain in terms of dealing with integrations. And now when we're talking to different parties, whether it's crypto natives or whether it's institutionals, the ease of conversation when we're talking about EVM compatible versus DuskDS, it's ridiculous. So the use cases and flows here are quite big. It has to do with all sorts of things, right? Whether it's tokenization itself, whether it's doing payments on chain, whether it's trading, all of these factors become a lot easier. So where do we stand in terms of onboarding? Yeah, it depends a bit because some of them are working with us where we are doing a lot of the heavy lifting so that the legal onboarding is taking place and is in an advanced state, right? Because keep in mind, even onboarding with an institution usually takes 3 months, and I'm not kidding them, just to do know your business and all that sort of stuff with these parties. And the implementation side partially lies on us. With others, it depends a bit. So I do expect that we will see people starting to test on this testnet that we have running now. We have had a version of this running almost 3 weeks, I think now. But I think currently we are in a state where we say we can keep this running for a bit longer. There will still be resets, but I think let's say the setup is quite good now. And obviously there will be some that will be fully live in 6 months, 8 months, but we have to see how quickly other serious integrations will take place. I know that some they would take place from a month from now, right? If we sign the deal, and that's quite positive. So and there are other parties that are telling us, oh yeah, we can do stuff in a week. It also depends a bit on the pipeline, right? So it's not just a matter of how long does the integration take, because we're already moving from seeing exchanges take 3 to 6 months just to integrate the native currency to, oh yeah, we can just integrate it in 2 weeks. But there's also a matter of the pipeline, and some have a pretty thin pipeline, some have a big one. So I cannot really give a singular answer here.
No, I think that provides a pretty good idea. And we are almost at the top of the hour. So I just want to ask you guys if you want to take a couple of more questions, or if you want to end it here and then we can continue with the rest in the next session. Hein, you have to answer. I'm sorry. I'll put you on the spot here.
No, I mean, I don't really mind. No problem at all answering these questions. I actually like it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm having a great time. Like, I can be here for another hour, but I want to be mindful of course, your guys' time. So if we can take a couple of more questions, then then let's get into it. I'll try to choose some that
after this question from Dusk, I'm going to drop off and I'll let the rest. Can ask the rest of the team some questions.
I'm not even gonna read that. I'm gonna, what question? I don't see it. Okay, so here's a relatively easy question where we can answer in a quite fast way. So will Dusk CLI and Web Wallet interact with DuskEVM as well as DuskDS, or will we use another Ethereum wallet for DuskEVM?
Yeah, so there is a very tiny edge where these will interact. And that's when it comes to the bridging between the two networks, right? So what we're doing at the moment, Kieran is working on that. He's changing some of the migration interface that we currently have to also support more generic bridging. And yeah, that would allow us to bridge between DuskDS and DuskEVM. And that's it. For the rest, we'll just rely on tooling of the Ethereum space. And when it comes to, for example, an application as stocks with the current architecture of a web wallet, we would have had to integrate stocks inside of the wallet itself, which would have been suboptimal. But because we have DuskEVM in place now, we can take that separately. So it's a separate website. So the interesting thing is, if you are a node runner in Dusk, right, you might find this an important detail, right? Because you might have staking rewards, you might want to move it to DuskEVM, maybe do some DeFi things with them, maybe do some things that I would not approve of, but can probably not talk about that have an impact in a certain way. But yeah, sometimes you have to do that to buy yourself nice things, right? But so those people will probably have to do it. But for the average user, especially when we talk about a stocks user, you do not care about this at all. Like DuskDS was just an implementation detail. You do not bridge. You just connect your wallet, your MetaMask wallet. You use Reown. You don't even need to use MetaMask in that case. You can even do stuff like log in with Google, generate an account, deposit money into the network through some EMT, and you can start doing all the stuff you want. We can, with stocks, for example, connect to other networks, get the liquidity from there, reissue the bonds, stocks, whatever, on DuskEVM to attract liquidity. So it kind of depends on what sort of user you are, but I think that for like the hardcore Dusk users, I'm not saying anything, by the way, to regard to that comment. That's illegal, but it's actually not, but still a bit gray area. But yeah, if you're a power user, I would consider a Dusk node hoster a power user. You would need this. Average user that wants to do stock bond trading, you don't need to know any of this.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The next question: are you adding any precompiles to the EVM client for special Dusk stuff?
Very smart question. At the moment, I don't think we are. We might be considering adding some other ZK primitives. But this is an experimental feature on the optimism side to do this. And for the use case that we currently have with Hedger, Grot 16 works. So no, at the moment not. But if there's a demand for it that is, let's say, financially sensible, then sure, why not?
All right. Can you give a pleb explanation of what changes are made to remove the 7-day challenge period of the OP rollup stack?
Yes. So what happens in OP in the node is when the sequencer, so the one that creates the batches of transactions, the grouping of transactions, if they do a transaction to the L1, they can defraud the system. But people have to be watching. So you get a 7-day period to keep watching and say, hey, this person, the sequencer, made a mistake. We need to revert this. So what we will do instead is say to our node operators, hey, a transaction is coming in from the sequencer. Check this before saying that this transaction is good to go. That's what I currently have in mind as an approach we will do. I know that internally there is some discussion about a different approach, but this one at the moment is my preference, and it's more like a pessimistic approach. It's called optimistic because an optimistic rollup, because you can optimistically check whether something is true and fight it. But I'm proposing saying it's always worth checking what the batcher is doing. You always assume that it's bad, but the underlying technology still works the way it did. It's quite trivial to do this because this challenging system exists as a off-chain system, and it's an independent action to verify the correctness of this this blog post, because you know that you get some starting point. You start, for example, with the value 1. Some computations happen. The blob contains how you did the computations. This can be checked by a validator, and then you have a result, let's say 5. So something from 1 to 5 happened, maybe some multiplications, additions, who knows, doesn't really matter. But you can check this as a system separately. So all of these sort of checks can be run in parallel, even multi-threaded if you want to. And yeah, this would then be not something that you would do in the transaction. It's the same like we did with the zero knowledge proof optimization to make DuskDS like 5 times faster or whatever it was. We can also do that with this, and then it would not have an effect on our consensus and all our blocks necessarily. And it would guarantee the safety to the point that you can just say, okay, on this block, this transaction went through, and it only went through because it was valid. So yeah, it's correct, as approved by everyone in our consensus. Hope that's clear enough.
Okay, got it. Well, we can do just 2 more questions and then we can end this, so we don't extend it too much. But I guess the first one would be, Hein, you mentioned in the last Hangout that only 2 members would be able to work on the ITN rewards, and someone was asking in relation to that question, if you can give more information on why that's the case. Is it based on technical capabilities, or is there something else?
Well, I do think that others can do it, but there is a lot of context required to do it, right? So I think, for example, we have we need to read from a smart contract, right? And we need to reconstruct that past state that happened there, because you cannot just read the contract, if I recall correctly. I think that Xavi and Thomas can do it, but then I need to onboard them first to do this. And the other part that we need to do is we have a backup of the old state of ITN on the cloud somewhere. We need to pull that in. We need to have one node that takes the state. We need to run the old Rusk and very old Rusk cluster. Yeah. It needs to take that state, and then we need to take a second node that syncs up or is able to query it. And I think with a lot of trying, I can do that. But the person most capable to do that is Sepia, but he's at the moment working on some quite important stuff. So it's doable, but it's not super straightforward. It requires pretty decent amount of context. So yeah, and of course you have to apply like at least a 4i principle, right, where more people check the correctness of the output you generate. I mean, it's not that we don't trust people here, but we're humans, we always make mistakes. So correctness is quite important in this context.
Right. Yeah.
Because we're talking about people's actual money, right? So,
Yeah. You have to be, of course, careful, and like you mentioned, there's more context that people would need to go and people would need to get onboarded, which would actually take more time than those 2 individuals working on it would take. It would be much more efficient to do it that way. It's just right now it's a matter of priorities. Cool, thank you. And the last question,
yeah,
which
I must also say,
sure, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, I must also say I have the team pretty much working on very high priority items, right? So everyone is doing their piece, and if I would launch someone out now to do something else that would have an impact on that particular project, and I'd rather reduce that amount of impact. I think that once DuskEVM is out, I think it's a little bit of a different equation for Sepia and me, for example.
Makes sense. And the last question, so that we don't drag this on for too long. Although I'm having a lot of fun, I could go more here. I think anyone could probably answer this question, but I'm just going to leave it up there, and then anyone can take it. But what do you guys think? There are not a lot of competitors trying to go for the route of native issuance and everything else that Dusk is working towards.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would be glad to hear if Xavi or Thomas have an opinion.
Can you say the question one more time? Why a lot of projects are not going for the road of native issuance?
Pretty much, yeah. And the vision and the route that Dusk is taking. We are one of the few which are even trying to go to this route, and some people are wondering why don't we see a lot of other competitors trying to go the same route. And just at least in your guys' opinion, or from what you see.
Well, our vision is that we are giving more control to investors by actually owning those assets, right? So when you look at the history of securities and how they came to be, at the beginning you had certificates in the form of paper. And at one point they became then through CSDs, etc., digitized in some way, but you lost your real self-custody over those securities. And we want to give those powers back to the people. And our other goal was always also to give back the privacy to people in a compliant and legal way. And this is the ultimate end goal that we want to have. Now, other projects potentially are just interested in getting assets out and people buying those assets while they have them in a multitude of indirections and wrapped forms. And what you actually then own on the blockchain is something that you own even less because there's one more party in between. You potentially don't even own the real stock. You own a certificate that is just giving you the up or downside of the price. It's tracking the price only. You do not have any rights associated with the security because so the term security comes from the fact that it securitizes certain rights like voting rights, the right to participate in the profits of a company, etc. And this is the first reason. The second reason is that it's also on our side now a thing that we want to tokenize certain assets. And the reason for that is that those assets exist already and they are pretty large, but they don't exist in a natively issued form for self-custody on a blockchain. So the only way to offer them on the blockchain as a temporary solution would be to tokenize them. Because if we have now a very large company which is traded with a very large volume and there is a lot of demand on that side, well, that company is not going to suddenly reissue their stocks from today and then you have it natively issued somehow, right? So there are a lot of in-between steps until you can reach the ultimate goal. And that goal, what we have, that is something that we want to enable on our chain. But we are also at the same time now going that very same route like other projects are doing with the tokenization to just offer the full broad capabilities and advantages that we can have through DLT. So that is the second reason. And the third reason is that the licenses that you have across the world are not that straightforward. And Europe is one of the few jurisdictions right now which has the DLTR pilot regime, which allows to run financial market infrastructure not only on secondary market but also on primary market, which allows you to legally issue those securities, which means without that license you are not able to do that at the moment. And this is also the reason why a lot of those projects are not at this state yet. So when you look at the financial system and how large that system is and how many players you have in that system, it's huge. And changes in that system doesn't happen from today to tomorrow, right? If you look at, for example, programming languages that are still used in banking systems, it's sometimes COBOL. And most of the developers who wrote the initial code, they are not even alive anymore. And they're running on some mainframes with operating systems that nobody ever heard of. And then you have also all kinds of different technicalities that you need to overcome to reach this final end goal of getting back to self-custody again. So that's basically hopefully answering the question.
Yeah, I agree with everything. I do think that one thing that's also the case is there is a lot of naivety in this space with regard to RWAs. That when you talk to people do this sort of stuff, they have zero awareness about any of these concepts because they are only busy with making revenue, right? And they don't really care that they're enabling basically an outflux of crypto liquidity to TradFi instead of trying to pull TradFi liquidity into crypto.
Exactly. Yeah, that's 100% true. I'm also of the opinion that one of the major reasons why certain TradFi players are now joining the crypto ecosystem is not because they are so fond of us and what we are doing, or that they actually share the same values. What they see is that there is billions of dollars readily available to be put into their own products in any kind of additional wrapped and even more abstract form that's potentially from a technical perspective worse, but they just care about getting more investors and upping their profit margins.
What I find really interesting though about this is, so in the US you can already see that there are actually quite some big banks that are experimenting with this stuff, right? Like they're quite early in the cycle. But I've also been talking to innovation departments of other banks, and they are basically saying, "Oh yeah, but these billions in assets, they're not that interesting for us. They're not like it's peanuts." So they don't even bother. But those are the laggards in the banking space, right? It's quite interesting how those dynamics play out. Like some banks are really risk averse to a point that in 10 years you can sort of wonder whether they will still be around. But
Fair enough. I think that was a perfect answer. I'm not even gonna add anything on top of that because that was a perfect conversation between you guys. I don't want to take away from that perfect ending. With that said, give more Thomas in AMAs. I 100% agree with that, Asknar. We should have Thomas in every team hangout from now on. Thomas, sorry man, it's what the people want.
That's kind of useful. I can go to bed now. That's like delegation, right? So here's someone from the tech team.
I love it. Well, like I said, I don't wanna extend this too long. It's already 70 minutes past. What is it? Time zones again. It's past 5 p.m. CST, right? Or 6 p.m. CST. It's 7 p.m. here. But yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining this session. Thank you, Hein, for the lovely demo. Thank you, Xavier, as well for the Hedger demo. And thanks, Thomas, for jumping in midway and for getting some really good takes.
Thanks to you for having us.
Of course, it's a pleasure. And thank you everyone in the community for joining us live and for the really good questions. There were a lot of good questions today. This was a really fun chat, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next one.